If you're a teacher or speaker, or anyone who likes to explain concepts and skills, chances are you turn to gestures to get your message across. You might believe that these gestures help to make your message understandable, or at least help to engage the audience. You might even feel that these gestures help you to remember and articulate your points. And all of these ideas seem to be grounded in evidence, so if you are someone who does enjoy gesturing, carry on. The problem is we seem to have ignored the other half of the communication equation, the listener. It's easy to focus on the gestures from the speaker. If we look at any meeting or classroom engagement, we see that most of the gestures come from one person, the speaker. All the other attendees might do in response is to simply nod to show acknowledgement. And this is fine. This is what we see as polite engagement with the topic. But could it be better? Sometimes, when someone is particularly engaged with the topic, you might see them begin to mimic the person they're listening to, using the same gestures. The question is, does that help them to retain or understand the message better than if they were simply still? Yes. At least that's what a growing body of research suggests. A study published in Cognitive Science found that the use of gestures by students helped them to retain complex and abstract information such as statistical variance. In the experiment, the students all watched a short narrated video which contained information about variance. However, the students were broken up into 3 groups and there were slight differences in how they approached the video. One group watched the video and were instructed to mimic animations which matched the subject being covered, the variance. For example, when talking of big or small variance, the students were encouraged to mimic animations which moved horizontally. So they would say that the variance was small or the variance was large. A second group was also to use gestures, but these gestures were mismatched with the topic. Instead of describing variance this way, they described it this way and were encouraged to use vertical hand movements when describing either a large or small variance. The reason this was mismatched is that the variance in the graph was shown on the x-axis. The third group simply watched the animation without being encouraged to gesture at all. When testing the students on what they had learned and what they remembered from the video, they found some interesting results. The results showed that the group with matching gestures performed far better than the other two. And as you might have guessed, the mismatched group performed the worst, with the group that did nothing falling somewhere in between those two scores. What we learn from this is that gesturing as students can help us understand and retain information so long as those gestures are matched to the subject that we are discussing. A simple way to do this as a student is simply to mimic your instructor and the gestures that they use. This is especially important in online learning where engagement is already lower than what it would be in a normal classroom environment. This also opens up avenues for instructors to engage their students. For example, some maths teachers have begun to use algebra aerobics, where children mimic, using their bodies, the shape that various formula will create on a graph. So whether you are a learner or a student, remember that you can use the power of gestures to great effect to improve learning.